All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. My co-host Sharpie will be back tomorrow. He's not feeling too good, but I had a great co-host as Ron Futrell always comes in every Tuesday. Ron, you've done an excellent job. If don't mind saying so myself.
I'm no sharp guy, as I told you. I'm sort of the dull knife in the drawer somewhere that's been around for 6-7 years.
I like it though because we always kick back and talk a little politics, and we always disagree on just about everything. But that's what makes the world go round, right? Anyway,
you don't mind being wrong, and that's what I like about you,
that's
Brian.
That's right. I don't. You know, about 10 years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver. We were just talking about DUIs and that sort of thing. And I hired a local attorney, and I'm not going to say his name because he might advertise at this station. I don't know if he does. But he was the worst, just the worst possible attorney you could have hired. I actually ended up having to pay money out of my pocket, even though the accident wasn't my fault. It was brutal. It was awful. And, you know, in this day and age, a lot of radio stations and TV stations will just, you know, say nice things about any attorney if they're getting paid for it, right? Well, that's not what I'm doing here, okay? So we have an attorney in studio right now who I hired not that long ago. I was in an accident, and her company, they did such a fantastic job. I said, you got to come in here, and I got to get your name out there. Not that she needs my help, but Sandy Van is in studio. She runs the Van Law Firm, and they did such a fantastic job with my case. And I think she's one of the best attorneys in Vegas. I really mean that. So, Sandy, thank you so much for coming in. How are you?
Good. Hi.
Have you ever done a radio interview before?
I don't know if I have.
Well, this will be your first then. Good. So how long have you been in law? How long have you been in Vegas doing this?
Probably 10 years.
Difficult job, right? I mean, you're working around the clock. I would imagine you're an extremely busy individual.
Yes, I am.
So we were just talking about all the car accidents that happen in this town. There's a lot of bad drivers here, and then, of course, a lot of DUIs because since alcohol is 24/7, you know, the easy access, and there's so many drunk drivers on the road. Does it amaze you on a daily basis how many car accidents and how many clients you get from just people who just don't know how to drive?
It does amaze me when, in this day and age when we have Lyft and Uber and it's cheaper than taxis, why people still have drunk driving accidents or even why we have the need for DUI checkpoints. That does amaze me.
And we were just talking about how, and maybe you could shed some light on this, that if you're a drunk driver and you kill somebody, I've seen some cases where some people, they only get 5 to 10 years behind bars, even less. And I'm thinking to myself, that's nuts. You take someone's life. You choose to get into a vehicle while drunk. I mean, I would imagine you've had some cases like that where you've represented families that, unfortunately, some people have lost their lives, right, because of people that were drunk. That's got to be tough.
Yes, it is. And I think with that, the hard part is their policy limits may not adequately protect the family. You know, we've had, I guess, digressing or whatever, we've had people that have lost their legs, you know, and the other person only had $15,000 in policy limits. And now they have an operation that's probably $200,000.
Oh, my God. So you're telling me you have some clients that'll lose a limb. They can only make maybe 10 or 15 grand from the actual crash itself because of the idiot that hit them and doesn't have a decent insurance policy. So what do? What if they don't have medical benefits?
So they have to protect themselves by getting a good policy for themselves.
Right.
And the things that you would want to check on your policy is uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. You want to get that as much as you can afford. And then medical payments coverage on your own coverage. So you have coverage in case you hit someone. So you have liability in case you hit someone because you don't want to lose the things that you have, your assets and stuff. Then you have to have coverage in case that person that hits you doesn't have very good insurance, which is that uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage and that med pay. We had one client recently that did pass away.
Ugh.
No coverage on the other party.
Oh, my goodness.
No coverage at all. And they had, I think, $25,000 in UMUIM, uninsured, underinsured motorist, and $5,000 in MedPay.
Oh my God, that is so terrible.
We waived our fees in that case.
That's nice of you.
You know, so that the family gets
that's nice of you.
The whole $30,000.
Yeah, at the least.
But like, let's say it was a regular firm, and we're taking a third. She'd be making $10,000 for a loss of life.
That's awful, and I'm sure there are plenty of attorneys in Vegas that would not have handled it the way you did. That's for sure. What do you think is the biggest mistake people make when they're injured in an accident, or even if it's like a fender bender, whatever the case may be? What do you think is the biggest mistake that the average person makes?
Hiring the wrong attorney.
Well, clearly I did that. 10 years ago I did that, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think that not every attorney is made, created equally. Just like if you were to eat at Morton's Steakhouse or McDonald's, you're eating,
Right.
you're full, but it's a different outcome.
Different kind of full.
Yeah,
Right.
different kind of outcome. Are
Yeah.
they finding all the policies? Are they working up the case correctly? Making sure that they can try and get you the maximum settlement.
That's interesting. What do you make of, and this might be kind of a general question, what do you make of some of these frivolous lawsuits where, somebody will come out and say, well, this celebrity did this to me, or this celebrity, harassed me or did that. And then these lawsuits, Rhonda, right? They're like they're millions of dollars. Some of these lawsuits, I suffered this. I suffered mental pain because somebody said the F word to me in the office. So I'm going to sue this company for $5 million. It just seems to me a lot of these lawsuits are happening, and it's a little wild. Am I wrong saying that?
No, absolutely. So the moral to that story is make sure if you get hit by somebody in a car, make sure it's a Walmart truck. No, Tracy Murray would say that.
That's
okay,
right.
Tracy, the comedian.
Yes.
That was a fatality that he happened. He was in a limo.
Yeah.
There was somebody killed. He was severely damaged.
Right.
He hasn't said what the damages are, but it was a Walmart truck that was violating the law that hit their limo and injured many people in there. So that's the moral to the story.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But short of that,
Yeah.
it's a whole different issue.
Yeah, don't get hit by the person that is barely making ends meet and probably forgot to make their payment on their insurance.
Isn't it wild, though, that, it could be the same injury and you could get, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even seven figures from the same injuries. And then if like you said, if somebody hits you with no money, you're going to get maybe 10 grand. It's crazy, isn't it? That's wild to me. That's insane.
Life ain't fair. I mean, let's
No.
go there. Nobody promised us fairness in life, and you're not going to have fairness in life. The best thing you can do is hire a good attorney to be able
Right.
to make it as fair
Sandy's
as you
definitely one of
as you
those.
possibly can,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
And just make sure that you have enough coverage. It's just like blackjack. You want to have do you want to buy that insurance? You want to buy that insurance.
You see that gambling analogy? I love that. I actually played poker against Sandy a few times, actually. She's
Did
a
you
good
win?
poker player.
Is she a good poker?
I was miserable back then. I was the worst person in the world to play poker against. We don't need to go there. That's just another story for another day.
So, Sandy, where are you from before here? Before Las
Tucson,
Vegas?
Arizona.
Tucson? Okay.
I want to open up the phone lines, too, and I got a lot of more questions to get to. But why don't I open up the phone lines for anybody that wants to call in and ask Sandy a question? She is very good at what she does. Personal injury is what she specializes in. So I'll open up the phone lines. Free legal questions and answers. 257-5396 is the number to call. 702-257-5396. What do you think is the most common car crash that you're covering? Is it somebody that goes through a stop sign, somebody that goes through a red light, pedestrian? Like what's the most common accident that you usually cover as far as for your clients?
Definitely not so much pedestrian. We have a few of those.
Really?
Yeah. Probably rear enders. Side swipes aren't that great because then it's like, oh, who merged into who?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't involved at all. You didn't take any clients for the October 1 shooting, did you?
No.
Do you have an opinion on that at all? I mean, that is a wild situation. So my understanding is that a lot of the victims sued a lot of different entities. They sued the bump stocks, which are now, I believe, no longer legal, right, Ron? They sued Mandalay Bay, and then Mandalay Bay comes back and they file a counter lawsuit with them. And I'm like, what the F? I mean, how is that even possible? What do you make of that whole thing? It's crazy.
I don't. I have somewhat of an opinion, but not much of an opinion. But I guess they're just throwing it all against the wall and see who will pay out. And sometimes attorneys can find, some other strategy. Like there was a case where there was a bus and it rolled over a doctor. He was riding a bike and his head got caught underneath the bus wheel.
Oh.
And I would have been like, oh, well, there's no case. But then an attorney did find out that the bus had some kind of wind tunnel suckage thing, and had they put some kind of part on this
Right.
bus, it wouldn't have sucked people in like a vortex.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they settled that for a few million.
What is here's something else, because you see these cases sometimes where people fake injuries. They fake falls in casinos or supermarkets. That's also a serious crime, isn't it? Because I've seen some of this stuff on video of people that do that. What happens? It's crazy, but I've seen it.
Cameras are everywhere,
Yeah,
folks.
I was looking at a story the other day of somebody that faked a fall at like a fast food restaurant, and I think he's getting convicted. That's a crime. You can't do that. What do you make of some of those stories?
they're just a little wild. Like I think I saw one on Facebook, but
Yeah.
it was like more work comp. Like they were at their break room and then they slipped and fell, and now he's facing some kind of thing.
There was let me go back here. You mentioned MGM with the shooting that happened 1 October.
Yep.
Now we're going to have 2 years. It's a year and a half ago almost. Okay.
Yep.
That being said, I do recall. Okay, and I got here to Vegas in '84 as it was wrapping up, but the MGM fire, which is now Bally's, 1981, that fire that occurred, that 81 people were killed in that fire, and they settled not right away, but there was some litigation. I remember the Thomas and Mack Center was used for some of the trial and the litigation, the hearings, and that sort of. It was so massive and it was so big, and there were a lot of attorneys here in town. Now I'm going to say old school attorneys that have been here for a long time that made their millions off of that case. Of course, the victims got paid. I hope they were sufficient. Not the victims of the fire, but their family members were paid. And in that case, I believe MGM had more of a let's settle, let's get it done. But nowadays with the MGM, you talk about MGM filing suit back again. They say they had to just for the process of what was going on. The shooting happened from an MGM property onto another MGM property. That's where their danger is and where they are exposed on that thing. Now, whether it's right or wrong or whatever, Stephen Paddock's not around to go after him anymore. But still, this story ain't over yet.
No,
certainly
I don't
where
think
this is going to go, and it took years to settle, and it was simpler times back then to settle the MGM fire. How MGM handles that, I mean, at some point, is it going to be? Are you going to put a B on that number? Are you going to put 1B, 2B?
It's difficult.
Billions?
Yeah, it's
is
difficult.
it going to be in this?
Sure.
That they may have to pay out because of this. Now, and I'm not even saying they're responsible, but that doesn't matter what I think. It matters what happens in the court of law with attorneys. A case you can make. Yes,
that is true.
Sandy, am I right about that? Make a case.
So
No doubt.
they might find something.
Yeah.
Who knows what their little strategy is?
All we know is that a lot of people lost their lives, and the animal that was behind the trigger is no longer here. Thank God. That's maybe the only good thing that came out of this. But it's a horrible tragedy. Unfortunately, those people aren't going to come back, and a lot of people that are injured. I know one woman specifically that was shot in the back, and her life will be changed forever. She survived. So I know I was supposed to be at that show. I was supposed to be at that concert. Instead, I went to the Vegas Golden Knights game with a friend of mine. So that show and that shooting is very close to me because I go to a lot of concerts. It's crazy. What do you make of? I don't know how much you follow the Colin Kaepernick stuff. I mean, I don't know how much you watch sports, and you don't follow that too much. But anyway, long story short, the guy is now filing a collusion case against the NFL. He's saying that all these NFL owners are colluding against him and not allowing him to play in the NFL. Isn't that almost impossible to prove, something like that? He's basically saying that all these owners are talking amongst themselves saying, oh, no, we can't have Colin Kaepernick play on this team. He's abolished from the league. How do you prove something like that? It's crazy.
Maybe it's e-discovery. I don't know.
It's nuts. I mean,
he has a great attorney. Mark Garagos is handling this
That's
case.
right.
Oh no, he's got a junkyard dog for an attorney, and I say that affectionately, that he is going after, and we'll see if there's nothing there. Garagos still might be able to create it out of whole cloth. I don't know, but it's hard to prove collusion amongst the 32 owners in the NHL that they are keeping Kaepernick, who ended his career, if it is over, as a subpar quarterback.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't like he ended as Dan Marino.
Sure.
He ended as a subpar quarterback, and that there was collusion amongst all the
He's not gonna
teams
win.
to be able to say,
He has no
do
chance.
not hire Kaepernick. And I heard the argument. I heard Garagos make the argument of, well, Mark Sanchez gets a job, but Kaepernick doesn't. Well, yeah, you could make that case, but it's still subjective.
Controversy.
It's still subjective.
Yeah, exactly. It is. If you're just joining us, Sandy Van from the Van Law Firm, joining us in studio. She's won plenty of awards. Name me a few of those that you've won. You've won quite a few of them. I walk into your office, I see all these awards that you've won. So it's time to gloat a little bit.
I think we've won Yelp, the People Love Us on Yelp award for a few years, Super Lawyers for a few years, Nevada Business Press, the Desert Magazine.
That's quite a few.
Avo. And then my favorite one would probably be our Pro Bono Award.
Oh, cool.
Because,
Yeah.
that sometimes I'd rather just donate the money because the clients aren't getting their stuff together for a reason, I'm like,
Right,
I'm
sure.
going to do your pro bono divorce or your pro bono bankruptcy, but you can't get me your tax returns. You can't get me, you don't know where your ex-husband is.
Oh, geez.
So it's like more headache than it's worth, but we spent a lot of time. We signed up for a lot of cases to get that award.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that. So I wanted to ask you this. I ask a lot of attorneys this same question, and I always seem to get a different answer. If you're and I know you don't do this, but as an attorney, if you're defending someone that you know is guilty, right? I say, well, how can your conscience allow you to do that? And I get all these different answers, right? Some people say, well, I'm defending the Constitution. The other people say, well, look, he hired me. I'm going to do the best of my ability to defend him and blah, 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 blah. But I'm thinking if you're like Robert Shapiro or Johnny Cochran and you're defending that scumbag, O.J. Simpson, right, who, in my opinion, is a murderer, and I know he got off. But with that being said, I mean, if you have a conscience, I don't know how you can defend people like this. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I know you don't do that. I know you're not a public defender. You're not defending criminal. I get that. You're helping people out, particularly who have been injured, like me, in a car accident or something like that. But what do you make of some of these attorneys, like a Robert Shapiro, like a Johnny Cochran, like a Mark Garagos, who defended Michael Jackson?
I think that it would probably be the same thing. They are protecting the Constitution and they're helping to their client to their best of the abilities. We haven't always done personal injury law, but, if it's bankruptcy, if it's taxes, if it's short sales or real estate, I have to help my client out. I'm not helping the government. I'm not helping Bank of America. I'm, just like if you're hiring me for the auto crashes, the motor vehicle crashes, I'm not trying to help Liberty Mutual. I'm not helping Allstate. I have to help my clients out.
I have a Robert Shapiro story if you want to hear it during
Sure.
the OJ trial. Okay. During the OJ trial, this mid-90s here in Las Vegas, Shapiro came here often for fights
Robert
on the
Shapiro.
weekends. Robert Shapiro came here often. Yeah, not Brian.
Yeah.
Robert Shapiro comes here often for fights. And so I saw him at a couple of fights. And he was like a rock star going into and I followed the OJ trial very closely. And like you, Brian, the evidence clearly showed that his DNA was dripping from the left side of his exposed hand because his glove had been sliced and had been taken off. And to the left side of his size 12 Bruno Mali shoes was his blood. Okay,
Right.
So pretty clear. And he had a cut on his left hand. No way for LAPD to know he had a cut on his left hand when they were planting, and I'm putting that in air quotes, when Mark Furman was planting the blood. Okay, so either they were very lucky guessers and they have a lot of vials of former running back's blood in their car that they somehow collect, or it was OJ. Okay. Anyway, that being said, Shapiro comes here for a fight, and I see him being treated like a rock star. So I go back into the press room, and I grab a piece of paper, and I still have it. Pictures of it on my phone, but I still have, I forget what fight it was. There was the big fight at Caesars Outdoors. And I said, okay, Robert, here, I want your autograph, but here's what I want. I want you to write, OJ did it, Bob Shapiro. And he looks at me and says, what's your name? I said, you don't know me? Come on, I'm a TV. And no, I said, my name is Ron. So go ahead, write OJ did it, Bob Shapiro. This is during the trial, by the way.
Oh, my God.
And he writes, Ron, let the jury decide, Bob Shapiro. And so I look at the sheet of paper, and I says, you can't even say, I said, Bob, you can't even say he's innocent. You say, let the jury decide. I said, you know something about those jurors that none of us know. So you're looking at the jury going, okay, let that jury decide. Your client's going to get off. I got you. That's you're
wild.
hoping for that. You can't even write that he didn't do it.
Because he knows.
Let the jury decide.
He's
Yes.
not an idiot. He knows.
Yeah. So anyway.
Any attorneys that you looked up to growing up, Sandy, that you said, wow, is there a reason why you wanted to become an attorney? Was there someone that, I know it's not like necessarily being a musician where you look up to a musician or a comedian, but are there any attorneys out there that you said, wow, I really want to do that. I really admire that person.
Well, let me see. I became an attorney. One of my friends suggested it, and she's a Supreme Court justice. She
wow.
was one, Nancy Seda.
Oh, wow.
And then let me see. Attorneys that I do look up to, Mark Lanier, who just won the Johnson & Johnson verdict.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I look up to him. He's just a great person. I've been to his trial academies, and, he's just someone that I really look up to. And he's just changing how companies act. They've got it in their budgets like, oh, yeah, we know we might get sued, or we might never, no one may ever figure out that we've got asbestos in this, and then it causes cancer. But like attorneys that do that, that's kind of cool.
That's wild. That's wild. Ron, do you have any favorite one? I never asked you that.
F. Ly Bailey.
Oh, Bailey.
Johnny Cockroach, Bob the Scumbag Shapiro. Hold on, I had names for all of them.
I think you're being sarcastic.
Barry the Worm Scheck.
Barry Scheck. He was the DNA guy.
Yeah, he was the DNA guy. Oh, by the way, after the trial, after he tried to disprove the DNA during the OJ trial, he then developed a firm that used DNA to help find perps, which now they do, which now is, and there's many celebrated cases of being able to do that. What the OJ case did do was open that up quite a bit, and to the point where now DNA evidence is used to be able to solve cold cases that for years.
Thank God they have that.
No,
now.
yes,
yeah, I agree. I've always said that when people vote, there should be an IQ test. I say the same thing with jurors. I think there are a lot of dumb people that are on jurors, and I think the attorneys in some cases are wasting their time because you just have idiots that make up their mind within the first 5 minutes. Would you agree with that? Do you think there should be some sort of IQ test for jurors, or just have it as it is, just like if you vote, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how dumb you are, you can be a juror?
It's supposed to be a representative sample. It's probably not, because people get off jury duty and stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I got to be on the radio. I'm sorry, Judge. I can't do it. I've heard that there are some people that even though they're not racist, when they're asked questions, they say they are racist just so they can get off jury duty. I've heard stories like that. Isn't that wild? That's crazy.
It's not something I would do, but I get it. but I get it. If you don't want to be on a jury,
just say you're a racist, and the judge is like, okay, we can't have him here. If you have an African American, there, it's just insane.
I was called on a jury here in Las Vegas, and it was the DuPont murder. That's all I remember here in Las Vegas. Somebody is an heir to the DuPont fortune. Was here in Las Vegas in downtown, and allegedly, I think he was later convicted. He was convicted. But I was set to go on the trial, and so I'm sitting in there, and I know both of the defense attorneys and the prosecution, and they saw me and they knew me from TV, and so they said, "Okay, Ron, will you not watch any of the trial if you're picked to be on this jury?" I said, "I can't say I won't walk through a newsroom and see some of the stuff going on." That on days when I'm not here in court, that I would probably see because it was a highly publicized case. And they both, the judge during that process, the judge said, okay, I'm not going to have one of the two jurors. You just reminded me of something, by the way. One of the two attorneys have to use one of their disqualifiers. You only get a certain number, whatever they're called. Yep. But the judge said, okay, Ron, you can go home.
You just reminded me of something, Ron. So we have a mutual friend, and I don't laugh about this because it's sad, but he used to be a sportscaster, a TV sportscaster in town. And for lack of a better term, he was arrested for exposing himself at a bar. And they claimed he was touching himself, and his pants fell down as he was walking to the bathroom. It's a horrible Anyway, he loses his job. Long story short, I've had talks with him, and he's claimed to me that he had an itch, and it wasn't what everyone thought it was. And yeah, it's horrible, right? But you have to laugh because it's so ridiculous. This guy's never been arrested before in his life. He's been doing TV for 20 years. His name's Randy Howe. Okay, I don't mind saying his name. It's a public thing. And he's going to come on this show and give his side of the story once the legal stuff is over with. But can a company fire you even though you're not convicted of anything? I mean, that doesn't seem fair to me. Ron had to go through something like this. Yeah, Ron had to go through something. He was accused of driving under the influence. It turned out not to be the case. He lost his job. I
wasn't even accused of that. Right. Let me clear that up.
Yeah.
I was accused of leaving the scene, and there was no place to stop.
Right, but he lost his job, and he suffered for it. My friend Randy lost his job. I don't know what he did. I don't think there's a tape. We probably would have seen it by now. But if a company fires you for that, and you actually didn't do anything wrong, can there be any type of retribution? Can you actually sue the company that fired you?
I was just talking to one of our attorneys today because we're just talking about how many tasks I have to do. I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
And then she's got to come on this stupid radio show.
She's like, yeah, so we were talking, and I was like, yeah, how you guys say something, and then we divvied up with the attorneys in our office, like, okay, you're going to do that task, and then so one of my tasks was, one day we'll work on an operating manual, and we have like a wiki from Wikipedia right now.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I've done that at other firms because I have an employment law background. And she said, well, sometimes these things can go bite you in the ass because it's an at-will state.
Right.
Fire you for whatever reason, and now you've put it in here. Now you're kind of creating a contract, and they could use that against you. So let's say you said that a receptionist must do these 15 things, and they're like,
Right.
I did all these 15 things. I don't know. I just kept asking the boss, like, could I do this differently, or what else could I do?
Right.
Can you help me with this? And then they fired me. Now you're creating a paper trail that can be used against you. I don't do employment law. But
Seems very complex.
I'm pretty sure that they could fire you for whatever.
Yeah, and they could. And
Yeah.
I'll answer your question. In my case, in particular, Tick Siegelblum was my
and
attorney.
you were at
by the way,
tell everybody
I was
where you
Channel
worked.
13 at the time.
You were, and how long
And
were you there for?
25 years. And I told them
25 years. You're a
I said,
sportscaster there.
when they fired me, I said, "You're going to fire me over a traffic ticket." I said, I know some lawyers here in town, so be careful here on this one. You're going to fire me over a traffic ticket. Which essentially was what it was. It was later dismissed. Everything
Right.
dismissed. Everything dismissed. Nothing. I didn't have to even. It was not even a traffic ticket. And so Tick Siegelblum and I threatened to sue them. And then I have got to carefully say this. And then from what I later heard in the newspaper, because I can't talk about it, whether there was a settlement of any sort, an out-of-court settlement, but I did read in the newspaper that I did receive a substantial out-of-court settlement. So I don't know whether that newspaper report is accurate or not. I don't recall.
I can guess and say
But
it probably
there
is.
was Norm Clark wrote.
I can guess.
an
I can
article
guess there probably was, and you know what? You deserved it.
that they
Yes.
settled with me,
Yes.
and that
I'm glad that happened.
that
deserve
was the report of the paper. I can't acknowledge whether it's.
We understand.
Do I sound like an attorney now?
We could read between the
Can't
lines.
Say whether it's true or not.
Speaking of attorneys, so Sandy Van Law Firm. Sandy, for people that we have a few minutes left here. For people that want to give you a buzz and have questions, can you talk to us a little bit about your business, how long you've been there again, and how people can contact you and contact your offices?
Okay. We've been open since 2012, 2013. They can contact us at 702-529-1011. We're off of Jones and Charleston.
Cool. So you can meet with, say I was in an accident, something happened. I don't know if the police are saying it's my fault or not. I can still meet with you and talk to you, and you guys could still represent me for free, correct? How does that work?
Right. So we represent you on a contingency fee basis, and we're plaintiff's attorney. So if you cause the accident, can't represent you, your insurance company that you pay insurance for will hire you an attorney. But let's say you didn't cause it and someone else caused the accident and hits you, then we can represent you, and we'll represent you on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay anything. We just get a portion of the settlement. Okay? Or if you slip and fall somewhere, or get trip and fall or something at a casino or hotel or something, we can represent you for that. And we're probably going to be going into the product space and drug pharma space. So if you get hurt by some drug that now you've got cancer because they created it in China, or same thing with like hip implants, hernia mesh, transvaginal mesh kind of cases like that. And now it's poking into something else.
Sure. Understandable. I was fortunate that the person that hit me admitted fault. But I've learned that if you're in an accident and there's no injury or serious injury, the police won't even come to do a police report. And that's what happened in my case. It was bizarre. I was in the hospital. I was banged up, and there was still no police report. But luckily, the person that hit me admitted to fault. That's got to be very difficult when you have a he said, she said type of situation, and there's not a lot of evidence.
So I have these like commonly tips, I guess, common tips. You should get a dash cam, a good dash cam.
That's good advice, yeah.
In case they merge into you and you're like, dude, he cut me off, or whatever. Or if you think that's going to be he said, she said, stop and get a witness and make sure you have their phone number correctly. Like dial their phone number. We had one person that had a witness, but then the phone number was off by a digit and they had no witness.
Oh, that sucks.
That's
brutal. That's so important. You're so right. That I just did that from instinct. I did do that, and I had someone that got his name and number and stuff. But you're so right. You need a witness. That is so important.
Try and get the police out there. Get a witness. Get a dash cam. Don't follow too closely. Now, that's somewhat, you think that that's kind of normal. You shouldn't follow too closely. But let's say you're following too closely, you stop in time, but someone pushes your car into theirs, and now they're both saying that you guys both caused it. But you're like, I was stopped.
Wow.
And the guy behind me ran my car into your car.
Right.
But they're going to say
That's
it's
crazy.
both the car's fault. A 3-car pile up. They're going to say
That's nuts. That's so
the
crazy.
middle car can be liable.
Yeah, so you want to stay a
you're
really
right, it's
good
crazy.
car length away from this other car.
Okay, a dash cam. Now that's intriguing to me. Is it GoPro, or are there companies out there that make dash cams that you can?
Oh, yeah.
Inexpensive, pretty inexpensive.
I think I got mine for $200 or $300 because I got a really
Okay.
good one.
Oh,
Well, but it would
get
it
one,
would be
Ron.
well
She's
with it.
giving you advice.
Yeah,
Get one.
get
Yeah.
those
Get a dash?
dash
one.
cams.
Okay.
Get
Yes.
a
Up there.
dash
Definitely get
cam.
one.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, Ron, for coming in studio. I always appreciate it when you come in every
It was a
Tuesday.
pleasure.
And Sandy, I mean this sincerely. You guys did a fantastic job with my case. In fact, they actually Ubered me from the hospital because I didn't have a car. Not a lot of attorneys do that. That was very nice of them, and they did a great job with my case. Give out that number one more time.
702-529-1011.
And I'm saying this from experience. I'm not getting any monetary value from this. She is one of the best in the business. I mean that sincerely. Give her a call. Thank you both for coming in studio. Really, really appreciate it. Tomorrow we're going to have a lot of fun on the show. As always, it's Wednesday. Jamison Welsh from Drive Time Sports will be joining us. We'll be going over the State of the Union address. I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of calls on that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. J.D. Sharpley back in studio tomorrow. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN.